does it matter? How can we stand as a continent if we do not support our local businesses? Welcome. This is Wake Up Africa. We are back in a few seconds. Many of us, many do ask, why is it that we do not support local businesses? And the response has always been the very usual, the very basic. Our products are not as per the standards that we see from other products, from products from other countries. But how then do we support African products, African services to be of that standard so that they're able to compete with international products? This is what we're looking on to Wake Up Africa today. And I'm glad to say that we will be joined by our colleagues, as usual, from outside Tanzania. Wake Up Africa is broadcasting live from Tanzania. I'm not sure where I'm going to be next week, but certainly in one of the African countries. And I'll be so delighted to take this program from there. But for now, let us look on to how can we support African business and why do we need to support African businesses by buying local products and supporting local businesses. When you buy a local product, I want now to drill this onto the point. When you buy a local product, look at it this way. That means there's a factory that produces that product. And once they produce that product, that means there are people who have been employed in that factory. These people have families and they support their families through the payments or the salary that they get by creating this product, putting that product into the market, and you buying that product. Hence, you support that business. Hence, you support that product. Now, when you support that business and that product, okay, through the taxes that the government collects in this factory or in producing that product, the government now is able to collect the revenues necessary to develop the infrastructures needed for the country, to develop the health systems, to develop the education systems, etc., etc. Simply by purchasing that product from that factory or from that locally produced locally available company in your country, in Africa, you're able now to support the business, the economy, you're able now to support the government to collect revenues. But not only that, once this employee has earned his or her income, what do? They go on to local markets to buy local products, again, supporting African or local businesses, but they also do savings. They put the money into their accounts. They buy shares, they buy stocks, they put into FTR, fixed deposits, at the local banks. And by doing so, the banks are able now to collect or to have enough deposits so that they're able to lend. Okay, when the banks are able to lend, people are now able to take loans and that portfolio grows. So you might be just wondering, now, if I buy this product from this person, what effects or what impact does it bring to the economy or even to yourself? Imagine this. You want to buy a locally produced toothpaste. Okay? So you go and buy that toothpaste. The person who buys or takes that toothpaste or receives the money that you bought the toothpaste from, deposits that money into the bank. Another company takes that money you've put as a loan and they go to invest at the local bar, for instance, at the local school, at the local hospital, private hospital, and then you're able to take your kids to that hospital. So you see, it is that money that you put, you bought the product, the owner put that money into the bank, that local school, private school took that money, invested in an education system where your kids now go to acquire education from there. And from there on, your kids grow. Now they're able to support. It is the entire ecosystem. It is not just like, what would that product do if I buy it from them? Now, the reverse is true. When you buy a foreign product, that means you're supporting a foreign company. Okay. So they import products. That means once you buy foreign products, the capital, the cash goes back to the factory. When the money goes back to the factory, that means those factory and those people in that country now have what would have been retained in the country. Why then can't you for once think of buying African products, supporting African businesses so that together we can support the African economy? We will be back, and from my next session, we'll be looking on to what does it take now to support African businesses. Stay tuned. Many of us, many of us Africans think that our products are not superior. It could be true. There are issues of research and developments. When you buy that product from that local company, that means you're supporting that company now to be able to invest even in research and development to improve the quality of that product. How many of us give feedback when we ask to give feedback after purchasing a certain product or service? Do we just go, this product is bad and trash it? Do we send that feedback so that those people producing that product are able now to develop, to improve on the feedback you've provided? We don't do that. Do we invest on research? A couple of companies are investing on research and innovation. This is why you see this product coming this side. Next time, because of the feedback that you've shared, they develop onto another type that responds to that feedback. How often do we give feedback? How often do we share comments, observations, and opinion critically to improve certain products? Now, this is why some of the reasons that I came across as we were discussing with a couple of people, friends from different institutions, from different sectors, had to say about the African products. Why would someone prefer a foreign product vis-a-vis a local product? One, skills to produce good quality products to compete with foreign products are inadequate in Africa. Skills. We have probably the world's raw materials, but we do not have the necessary skills to convert these raw materials into global competitive products. If you see, oftentimes, a local and African product abroad, it is probably, they probably took the raw materials here, they went and processed them in China and sent them to different markets all across. Why is it not the high time for the African institutions, for the African governments now think through critically on skill development? And I often like the way China did this when it came to developing skills. They took their people to different countries, exposed them, they made sure that they acquired certain skills, came back to China, started developing products. Now, because of that, most countries in the world go to China, not because of cheap labor, but because if you want to produce anything, these people in China can actually produce that for you. Why not Africa now get to that level of just ensuring we may not necessarily be able as governments to take our people abroad for studies, one way or the other? Of course, it can be done. But again, why don't we invest on skill development? If you're to ask me, and I remain corrected, I'm not a politician. I wouldn't say yet, but I'm not a politician. If I were to get donor funds and skills, probably an expert to come and train my people to develop products. Between funds and skills, I would pick skills. This is number one, skills to produce good quality products to compete with foreign products are still below. What then should we do? Invest mostly in skills. Let us put a lot of time, effort to improve our education systems so that the students coming out of our education system, those who do not go on to the education system, have a way to acquire some skills to develop competitive products. Number two, going similarly with, again, skills to produce competitive, good quality products. Branding. You see, a simple product is this pen that I'm holding, the way it looks. Can we do similar products and make sure that they are very well branded so that they're able to compete in the markets? Can we do that? Can we do products, make sure that they are very well packaged, make sure that they're very well branded so that they're able to really look nice on our shelves in our supermarkets? Because you have a product, one very superior product, very well branded on one side, the other side, not very well branded. Of course, if you're a supermarket owner, you would put the one that looks very nice at the top shelves. Products that are the top shelves attract more sales than those at the bottom shelves. That is a basic principle. So when we are able to improve the look and feel of our products, we are now able to make sure that they go onto the upper shelves. But again, we're now able to even push those products more into the market so that they're able to compete with international products. When I come back, we'll look onto other factors. But for now, let's take a quick break. Other than the skills to produce competitive products, the branding and packaging to produce local products, but we also have an issue of pricing. Pricing has many aspects, but for now, as per the research, we have local products, local materials, but they look onto these international products attract these prices. And so we put prices similar to those of international products. I repeat, local products, local materials, local production, international pricing. Now, someone says, I have this good product from Europe, for instance, US, anywhere, China, very well packaged. It costs $1. Then I have this local product, not very well packaged, not very well designed. It gives some certain sense, good or bad. It also costs $1. Then you put a consumer in a state whereby we force them to say, let me go try this product. Okay. Why then now, since the products are locally produced, technology, think of local pricing, think of the pricing system. We have oftentimes an issue of pricing. I do not know why, but we want to put a product, not looking onto the cost that we have incurred to produce that product and the profit margin, big or small, but we look onto what are others selling these products. Okay? And then we want to compete with those products. They could be superior for one or two reasons. One, they've invested so much into research and development, but also two, they have been in the industry for a long time. Three, there are issues of economies of scale. They're producing in bulk and they're able to sell at that price while we are starting. Why do we need to sell our locally produced fantastic products at international prices? We ought, as businesses, to consider pricing as a big aspect. Alan Subi, welcome to Wake Up Africa. We'll be looking forward to hearing your insight on how we can support African products and African businesses. Going on to the next point, which is compliance. Most of businesses in Africa are not compliant. They're not even registered. They're not even formalized. Now, when you have an informal business, that means, there are things either you will not be entitled to. For instance, loans from the banks. They want to give you a loan, but since you've not registered your business for one way or the other, thinking maybe you're evading taxes or you're running away from anything. But then look at what you're missing if you're not registered. Look at what you're missing if you're not formal. Okay. Now, informal businesses also tend to produce products that could, I would not use the word dubious, but close to that. Okay, you look at the product, where can I trust the producer or the manufacturer of these products? They are nowhere to be found. You will be hesitant to consume that product. Okay, so let us make sure that we produce products, but as we produce products, we also have the address. We also have the existence. Someone can come into the factory and say, "I like your product. This is how I think you should improve it," and and this only comes like formalizing our businesses. When you formalize your business, you are in business. Number 4, 5, skills and technical know-how. I spoke earlier on skills to produce quality. Now, skills and technical know-how is when now it comes to the application of technology. Okay? What technology would it take to do branding? What technology would it take to improve the quality of the products? The more you improve the quality of the product, the more you are likely to sell it higher because you've added value onto that product. Okay? Vis-a-vis selling low products. Selling not low products, but low quality products or unimproved products or products that have not been value added. There's no value addition onto the products you're producing. We heard last week, was it from Alan Sobi, that the president, we're looking onto how to make sure that we do not export raw materials from outside Africa. Why? Because if we are able to process raw materials, we are now able to sell them at a slightly higher price than selling raw materials. We're able to reduce bulkiness. And when you're able to reduce bulkiness, that means you're more able to export more loads, more products than if you export bulky, only for them to process to get a small amount. That means it's a loss to you. So technical know-how, acquire the knowledge to run and operate certain machinery so that you're able to produce quality of products. I was listening to a certain production last week as we are talking about this program as well, whereby someone says we have people bringing the technology into Africa and then they leave. And then those very expensive technologies, governments have incurred a lot of money to import those technologies, can now not be operated in Africa. We cannot even import spare parts for those materials, those machinery. Then what's next? Okay, so we make sure that we have our people, have the technical know-how to operate the systems, to service the systems and the machinery, so that even the expatriates, once they leave, we are able to continue on. There's a sustainability aspect onto that. But again, look onto many businesses in Africa. If you notice that most businesses in Africa are similar, if someone opens a boutique here, the next person will open a boutique on the next shop, a boutique, a boutique, a boutique. Someone sells shoes here, the next person will sell shoes, 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 shoes. Someone sells veggies, 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 etc., etc. We overcrowd the markets. When you overcrowd the market, when the supply is bigger than the demand, certainly the price will go down, laws of demand and supply. When the demand is bigger, the price is high. When the supply is bigger, the price is low. Why then are we not innovative enough to say, so this person has opened a boutique here. Why don't you open a product or a store that sells to complement your neighbor so that you're not competing. One, competition is good, very good. However, here we're looking onto complementing each other so that whoever supports this business can also support this business. We support each other. This is why Wake Up Africa comes. We changed the narrative because at the moment, we are not supportive of each other. Every business, is competing against each business. We are not innovative enough. So when someone has opened a butchery, why don't you open something that would complement a butchery next to that person? So you find food store, food store, food store, food store. They're serving similar products, chips, 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 chips. Okay. Why don't you do something else, like open a store where you can sell food containers so that those who want to do takeaways can support your business, take the container, buy the food, and go away. Why don't you sell juices so that those who are selling food can now also get services of drinks to the customers that they serve, etc. Innovation to avoid overcrowding of products. One, to complement businesses, but also to ensure that the price always remains high to support businesses by reducing products in the market. Another factor that came through very vividly is the market. Africa as a continent has a population of close to 1.3 billion people. 1.3 billion people is the population of Africa. I used to have a friend who used to tell me, "Austin, do you want to make 1 million shillings a day?" I said, yes. So he said, make a product, one product, focus on one product and sell it at 1 million shillings, or sell million products at 1 shilling. The choice is yours. Now, governments, heads of states, African Union is promoting the African Continental Free Trade Area. What does this mean? This means now the countries that have ratified, that have signed to be members of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area or agreement are able to move products from one African country to the other without any unnecessary taxes in between. Okay, what does that mean? So if a product is sold at a factory price in Tanzania, it's shipped to, let's say, Ghana. The only additional cost that would come there would be for the shipment. Okay, because you're now able to sell off factory at an off factory price. Okay, now let us leverage on the integration, regional integration blocks that we have. We have the EAC, we have the SADC, we have the African Union, but over and above those, we have the African Continental Free Trade, etc., etc. Now, when we look onto the African market, yet again, 1.3 billion people. Why do you want to think of selling your products in Europe, in some country that the population is even less, looking onto that small niche? Buying African businesses, supporting African businesses will continue to unite us as the continent. This is Wake Up Africa, and we're looking on to supporting African businesses, buying local products, supporting local businesses. We'll take a quick break and come back with questions and comments from the audience. I still have one more point to speak, and then we'll take your opinion, comments, question from our viewers. We will be back. Needless to say, on the aspect that I mentioned earlier of pricing, taxes, and I'm sure many will probably comment shortly when I start reading the comments, that why is it that the focus has been on the private sector? Why have I not focused on the government? What role do governments have in promoting local products and local businesses? Taxes. Most African countries, almost all African countries, have the first one, the first, second, and third sources of income is taxes. So we heavily depend on taxes to develop our economies. That means our tax percentages are very high in businesses. Okay. Now, any producer will have to push that tax component onto the price so that the consumer can be able to pay for that, or should be able or should pay for that tax margin. So government impose taxes because they want to collect revenues for different purposes. The producer is not ready to pay 100%, so they either split 50-50, 30-70, etc., and put it on the price. Eventually, the product that goes out into the market has a higher price. What does this mean yet again? This also means when the products are highly priced because they have a component of taxes, those that are imported and supported by the government do not have taxes from their countries, are imported at more cheaper prices. If they're imported at more cheaper prices, what does it mean? So we have a foreign product here. I'll give an example. Tanzania produces one of the best wines in the world. But wines in Tanzania, a bottle is more expensive than imported wine from South Africa. Now, if you look in Tanzania, we have taxes in the production of winery. We have taxes in the production of the bottle that we put the wine, etc., etc., etc. So the final product that comes into the market has all these costs involved, not to mention all other, compliances that one has to follow in order to be able to produce that product. Food and beverages, drugs, etc. They have, all these multiple organizations that regulate them. Then they all come with packages and cost, etc., etc. Okay. So the governments now here have to look through very carefully. If you want to support local products, and I've seen in many countries, local products either have zero taxes or they have very minimal taxes compared to imported products, so that they're able to support businesses that, are locally grown in their countries. This is the way you can, as governments, can be able now to support local businesses so that local businesses can be able to produce more and have more products in the market so that they're now able to tax more, get more returns. Now, if you put taxes at the beginning, you start consuming that CapEx, CapEx, capital expenditure that this investor is put on. Where will you get your taxes? When they close businesses, think of the jobs that they lose. Think of the income that you lose as taxes. Think of those people now who do not have jobs and they have to be fed, the burden that is brought onto the government. This is only one component. Governments in Africa need to really, really, really pin down other alternative sources of income besides taxes so that we are able to reduce, especially for local businesses, taxes that hike up prices for African products. We will be back. And when we come back, this is Wake Up Africa. We will now take comments, questions, opinion from you, my dear viewer. But before we go away, I would really once again wish to thank my excellent producers. Essa, good morning, wherever you are. I appreciate. And Noreen, thank you so much, guys. This is the third episode, and we are going strong. Stay tuned. This is Wake Up Africa, Rise Africa. How do we change the narratives? How do we tell the world that Africa is one, Africa is united if we do not buy local, we do not support local? Wake Up Africa. Be back. And welcome back. This is Wake Up Africa. The third episode today is looking on to supporting African businesses, buying local products, supporting local businesses. Wake Up Africa comes into the spaces of Africa Saturday morning live from Jerusalem, Tanzania, with an intention to change the narratives. How does the world look at Africa? Africa is a war-torn continent. Africa is a diseased continent. Africa just, people just compete, fight. Nothing good comes out of Africa. Africa is a dank continent. But it is high time that Wake Up Africa wants to show the world that we are way, way, way better than that. We are way developed. We are more developed. We can do better. And by supporting African businesses, by supporting and buying African products, we are really going to show the world that yes, come to Africa and see to yourselves. Look at the world's infrastructure. Look at our schools' education system. Look at our people. Look at the levels of development. However, this can only be true, and we all know can only be true if we buy and support African products and services. Why? Because when you buy African products and services, the money that is generated in circulation supports the development in Africa. Now I have Yoram from Accra, Ghana. Yoram, good morning. This is Wake Up Africa, and thank you for your question. Yoram is asking, do donor funds and international loans help in supporting African business, or they repass through and it's dot, dot, dots? Donor funds and international loans. Yoram, this is a very good question, and thank you for joining Wake Up Africa all the way from Accra, Ghana. Donor funds. Yoram wants to know, donor funds and international loans, do they really help African businesses? Do they really help us to? So, Yoram, what I can say is yes and no. Yes and no in what sense? If we have donor funds directed towards, yet again, skills, directed towards technology, they're able to support businesses to grow and thrive, then yes. Donor funds put onto any other use besides development agenda. We're just increasing country debts, we're just accumulating debts, and that is going to rip us left, right, and center. We have seen a couple of countries in Africa that have been debt torn by loans. Okay, so yes, in one way or the other, that we are able to do some development with donor funds to as far as where is this funding? Where is this funding directed to? Now, thank you, Yoram. Let us continue to engage. If you have any other examples from Accra, Ghana, or from anywhere across Africa, please share, and we'll be very happy to uh, have that in Wake Up Africa. We have Jakub from Ethiopia. Hi, Jakub. Jakub is saying, does education prepare us for the future? Does education prepare us for the future? As we're looking onto local products and supporting local businesses, Jakub from Ethiopia, I want to understand, you're talking in terms of, does the education in terms of skills prepare us for the future? Is our education system right now in Africa preparing ourselves, preparing us and our children and those coming behind us with equipping them with necessary skills to be able to develop industries of the future? While the world is looking onto the AI, how far is Africa from the AI in terms of the education system? I believe that is what Yakub from Ethiopia is implying. Does the education prepare us for the future? Looking onto African products, what does our education system do to support the preparation of skills? Yesterday, I met with one professor at one of the local universities here in Tanzania, and we're looking onto the education system that we have in most African economies. And he called it, and I want to believe it still is, the colonial system. Now, the education system is designed such that it just goes like that. You know, you acquire knowledge, you go to school, many subjects, etc., etc. And then we do not have skills. At the end of maybe 10, 15 years of education, you have not acquired skills. Now, they bring other people or other institutions to basically sharpen soft skills. Why don't we have this as part of the education? As people are growing, they also acquire soft skills in Africa so that by the time they finish, they're now able to go and start businesses elsewhere. Yakub from Ethiopia, education preparation is probably another thing that we ought to think of. You know, I know even private schools are regulated by the government, but it is high time for Africa to think on how the education today can define and prepare the future generation for future businesses and future industries. Thank you, Jacob. I have Lenana from Kenya. It takes government willingness to support as well as leadership. It takes government willingness to support. Agree you and more, Lenana. It is totally true, and I agree with you. A couple of points. We spoke about taxes. We spoke about aspects of integration, like the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, where the governments really have a role to ensure down the line, not up here. Sometimes you have the president up here with the certainty or confirmation that yes, we want this to work. But when it comes to lower levels, now things just get stuck. Now you're absolutely right. Government supports towards local businesses and local products and local services in many forms is key. We will be back with more questions. This is Wake Up Africa. And thank you all, my dear viewers, for joining. Give us a couple of minutes for a few seconds for a break, and we will be back. This is Wake Up Africa. This is Wake Up Africa, and welcome back from a quick break. I also have Abby all the way from Ethiopia. Hi, Abby. How is Ethiopia this wonderful, fantastic morning? This is Wake Up Africa, and thank you for joining. Abby says alternative sources of income to drive economies and not taxes. I think Abby wants to say that the government should consider alternative sources of income to drive and not tax. I agree with you. When you have taxes as a primary source of income, taxes are imposed on the product and hence the prices go up. One way to look at it. Okay? When you impose taxes obligation. And if they're able to meet that tax obligation, they will certainly not decide to pay it 100%, but rather divide it equally so that a consumer can also pay or have a pinch of that. Alternative sources of fee. Thank you for raising this up. That means if the government should consider taxes as one source of income, mining, livestock, etc., as other sources of income in magnitude by simply investing on those. They will now be able to ensure that the taxes remain at a certain threshold that the market can meet. So thank you very much, Abby, for that comment. It's really appreciated. And thank you so much for joining this early all the way from Ethiopia. I have Gabriel Nyamu joining us from Kenya. Gabriel says, I love this. I'm an advocate for products and Pan Africa Enterprises Development. Thank you, Gabriel Nyamu, all the way from Kenya. Appreciated. Thank you for watching Wake Up Africa. Tell us, how is Kenya this morning? How is it going? How do you think we can support African businesses by buying local products and supporting local businesses? This is Wake Up Africa. This is third episode of Wake Up Africa, broadcasting live from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Thank you all. Yoram from Accra, Ghana, Yakub from Ethiopia, Nenana from Kenya, Abi from Ethiopia, and Gabriel Nyamu all the way from Kenya for your wonderful question. I also have questions from Collins from South Africa. Collins says, specialization, competitiveness, and comparative advantages. Specialization, competitiveness, and comparative advantages should be the focus for Africa. And I think here, Collins from South Africa, you really have a point. This is similar to, I think, what I said earlier on, that most products flood the markets similar at the same time. So you have Tanzania producing some products as Kenya, producing some products as Uganda, producing some products as Ghana. Okay? We are an agricultural economy. That is totally true. Okay? But specialization, looking onto competitive and comparative advantages our countries have, so that we are now able to trade with each each other, I believe is a very great approach to addressing buying local products and supporting local businesses, whereby we do not need to compete with each other. I think it also can vivid that is not be competing. However, I should not sound like competition is bad. Competition is good. And competition is good in one great aspect, that when you compete, you are forced constantly to innovate and produce good or better products than competition. Okay? Imagine if we only have one company producing one product. There's no innovation on that product. There's nothing. They can rise the price whichever amount they want to. But when you have competition, that means if you hike the prices, similar products, businesses and market will tend to move on to the other product or onto the other business. If you're not improving, people will go on to the product where they get more value. This is why competitive and comparative advantages come critical from buying local products and supporting local businesses. I agree. So let's look onto Africa as a continent. Okay? There are countries like DR Congo, and we all know they are endowed so much with minerals? Can DR Congo produce minerals? And through the money that they accrue from minerals, buy foods from, let's say, Tanzania. Just giving an example. Or let's say buy matoke from Uganda. Okay? Can DR Congo take the minerals to South Africa for processing and not to Europe for processing, so that South Africa, where has invested heavily on technology, can now produce African products and sell? Okay, I'm just thinking out vaguely that comparative and competitive advantages that African countries have should really come into use. Okay, we produce honey in Tanzania. Another country produces certain products. We do not exchange products like that, as in barter trade, but we sell them to you. You give us cash, we're able to buy products from you, etc., etc. This is how specialization, competitive, and comparative advantage would come handy when it comes to supporting African businesses. Buy local products, supporting local businesses. We will be back. Let's take a quick break. And once again, Essa and Noreen, thank you so much for this wonderful work. Wake Up Africa is growing big. Thank you, our viewers, joining us from Accra, Ghana, from Ethiopia, from Kenya, again from Ethiopia, and Gabriel Nyamu, my brother from Kenya. Thank you so much. We'll be back. Stay tuned. Wake Up Africa live. Welcome back. This is Wake Up Africa. And today we are looking on to supporting African businesses. And this is the third episode where we're looking on to buying local products and supporting local businesses. I'm looking on to now the service industry. I'm looking on to, and I want to focus on the next couple of minutes on the service industry. Schools, for instance. We have many African leaders, apologists, many politicians, many rich Africans who take their students outside Africa for studies. Don't we have competitive African schools, universities that we could also take our children so that they remain true and grounded to our cultures, norms, and practices? I'm looking on to hospitals in Africa. And when I was discussing this with a friend of mine from South Africa once upon the last 2 weeks, he said, Austin, it is true we have good hospitals in Africa, but what are chances of survival when we take our patients to the African hospitals? I said, what are chances to take them abroad? People are taken abroad and they die there. Okay. But again, maybe this should be a wake-up call to Wake Up Africa, to the African governments yet again, and to the private sector to make sure that our facilities, schools, hospitals meet those standards that we look through and compare. And again, with the professor that I met yesterday at the university, speaking about the education system that we have in Africa is that of a colonial setup. When is it the high time that Africa should really focus on the education system that addresses African needs? When is it high time? When do we review our curriculums in Africa to address the needs of the markets? I did mention earlier on that after the education, then you want to go on to skills that are not been taught at the universities and schools so that a student can acquire those skills as well. So if all this investment the parent puts on the child goes on to a waste, why then don't we have those skills as parts of university degree? As students, when they go to university, they've already acquired some certain skills. They're only going there to acquire some mastery of those that they've learned at lower levels. This is a wake-up call. Now, not only governments, because even governments, when they want to pass policies, they consult the private sector. What is your role towards supporting African businesses, buying local products, supporting local products? I would also like to speak the aspect of tourism. We have probably the richest of tourism in the world. Best national parks, game reserves, etc., etc. But surprisingly, you plan a holiday outside Africa. Why don't you come to Tanzania? Why don't you go to Rwanda and, enjoy tourism there? Why don't you go to Zimbabwe, Zambia, look onto the Victoria Falls and do a bungee jump there? Enjoy and explore nature. One of the things that I've realized with my brief visits in many African countries and few African countries, that sense, Africa is endowed with a lot of history, a lot of natural resources, beautiful national parks and game reserves, etc. Almost every country in Africa has something to tell. Why think of going on those monumental? I remember I took a tour once in one of the European countries. Allow me not to mention that country, and I paid, it was 50 euros then for what they call the city tour. I said, had I known what we will be seeing on the city tour, I would have never taken that trip. They go there and they show you this building was built in such year by such and such architecture. Maybe because I did not study in civil engineering, etc., that I did not appreciate that. But they would go onto a statue and they would show you that statue is of so and so, who was so and so. Then I asked, Tanzania has so much better attraction than this. Yet I do not probably appreciate, I do not even take trouble to take my family to see what we have in our country. I've now started posting a lot of what is happening in Africa, what is happening in Tanzania on my different platforms. Why? Because I really want Africa to appreciate and start thinking and seeing that, yes, we have our very own natural resources, our very own national parks, our very own game reserves that we can go on holiday to. It does not need to every day be in the AUE. It does not need to be, those countries in Europe to see the towers. And, we go to Europe to walk on a beach while we have the beautiful coastline in the world. We have the most beautiful coastline in the world. When did you take the trouble to just come to the beautiful coastline that we have? Imagine all the way the eastern part of the African continent, the Indian Ocean, beautiful beaches. And luckily in Tanzania, I would speak for Tanzania, I've seen the same. I've been to Mombasa in Kenya. The beaches are, everyone can just go onto the beach and enjoy the scenery, enjoy the natural, beautiful air, you know. Um, I know of a place in Mombasa as well that has beautiful beaches, fantastic beaches. Why don't we plan holidays around African countries so that we are able to support African businesses? We're able to support tourism and promote tourism. It's interesting that when people travel across Africa, hardly share even selfies. Hey, I'm in this country, I'm doing this thing. But when they go to Europe, my days, you will be, bombarded with pictures showing that they've visited certain country outside Africa. Let us be, let's love and value our very own. This is what I normally tell my friends. You could be in Europe, you could be in US, you could be anywhere in the world, but the only place you can call home is Africa. That is the only place you can call home. Tanzania is your country, you know. Even if you have citizenship, you've got a green card, etc., etc. The only one place you can call home is where you trace your roots back. Are you proud? Are you able? I visited the UK once, and people were not even able to say, I'm going to certain countries. They would say, I'm going to Africa. Why are you not proud of your own country? Where in Africa are you going? A couple of months, I also visited Turkey. And, they kept saying, Where are you from? I'm from Tanzania. Where is Tanzania? And I proudly told them where Tanzania is, start telling them the highest mountain in the world, the highest standalone mountain in the world, the highest mountain in Africa is in Tanzania. Oh, Kilimanjaro, Zanzibar. So they also know this and that. Are we able to tell that, to value our very own? Aminata, welcome to Wake Up Africa. Delighted to have you on the third episode. Karibu. This is the third episode of Wake Up Africa, where we are looking on to supporting African businesses, buying local products, supporting local businesses. Aminata, why do you think that we would rather prefer to buy foreign products and not local products? And hence, what do you think is the impact of doing so? Karibu, we are happy now to hear what your take on the topic is.
Good morning, Wake Up Africa. This is Aminata from the sunny side of Arusha today. Thank you for having me, Austin. And back to your question, why do I think supporting foreign products is important? Yeah. Well, allow me to rephrase it. I highly support the whole concept of buying Africa, grow Africa. I highly support the concept of consuming our own. But question is, are we ready to monopolize that market? Because I feel like in as much trust as buyers have to our local businesses, our business owners are letting us down in one way or the other. There's the issue of consistency, there's the issue of quality, there's the issue of service. You could name it all. So before we fully commit into this whole concept of buy Africa, support Africa, let's cultivate this into our business owners, into our entrepreneurs, that serving a fellow African and serving a non-African should literally be valued the same, or rather more priority should be given to Africans. Over to you, Austin, for now.
Thank you very much. You've spoken of consistency, you've spoken of quality, you've spoken of course, service, and I cannot agree with you more. You're absolutely right. But again, if I'm not supporting, or if I'm not supporting African businesses, Aminata, how then are we able as the private sector to invest into quality, into consistency, into better services?
Austin, there's what we call taking a leap of faith, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is something that, okay, allow me to rephrase this. Taking a leap of
Bring it
faith
on.
as a business owner is non-negotiable. Before you start, or even think of getting your first client, there are things that you've got to invest in yourself. The knowledge, the experience that you want your customer or client to have and all that. Now, what is that expectation? Yeah, because, okay, I say this because I have encountered lots of startups that I truly want to support, but the first experience is good. The second, that think of elsewhere, it's one, cheap, but consistent. So it's not rocket science, yeah, to say that before business owners get that not really luxury, before the business owner gets the opportunity to serve the African market, I feel like they should. Austin, this is complicated. I
Bring it on, bring it on.
I don't have polite words. I don't have polite words for this.
Mhm. Be blunt. Be blunt. Rest assured, we want to change the narrative. Okay, an iron sharpens an iron. Remember that. So say, bring it on.
It's not rocket science. Yeah. It's fair to say deciding to be bold. Because, let's skip this. Let me have polite words for this, because what I'm about to say,
But again, Aminata, this is recap. As a dank continent, we cannot do anything. We cannot even produce superior products. Do you buy that? Is it true? And if it's true, by what percentage?
Sorry, come up again.
There are narratives out there, and this is why Wake Up Africa came to be. And thank you for being part of Wake Up Africa. That Africa is a dark continent. Africa is a war-torn continent. We don't have businesses. We can't run our own businesses. We are a very poor continent. We do not have anything of our own. We do not have anything of our own in Africa that we can say, this vehicle is made from Africa, etc., etc. Do you buy that narrative?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I believe Africa has the capacity to develop, to come up with products, like different products. We have the knowledge, we have the manpower, we have the resources. But before we
what do
think,
we lack?
Austin, I missed that. Come up again.
What do we lack? What do we lack?
We lack consistency and we lack focus. See, a country like the United States took a long time to get to where they are. Now, why do we want to compete with someone else's chapter 20 while you're still on chapter 1?
Or introductory chapter.
Why don't we focus on the day-to-day products that we use first, as we move to the aircrafts, the ships, the cars, and all that? Why don't we focus on the things that we use on a daily basis? Because I feel like through that, we are able to like master and cultivate that sense of consistency, understanding the clients, and basically getting experience in the business area. Because you don't just wake up and say, I'm doing this and I'm starting here, and you have no idea of what happens in the business arena. Over to you, Austin.
So where do we start, Aminata? What is the starting point? Where do we start?
As cliche as it may sound, I think we should start by creating a roadmap. Back to the drawing board. And picture everything we want to see to the end, then start connecting those dots going back.
Allow me to quote Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere here, Aminata, and I'm happy that you brought this, that we have to go back to the drawing board. And I want you to tell me, where is that drawing board? Mwalimu Nyerere used to say, I may not say exactly the way he said it, I can't remember the exact way the quotation says, but it says, keep moving no matter what. Run, fly. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But bottom line is keep moving. You gave an example of the US. They started many years ago, which is totally true, but they started somewhere. I always tell people the advantage that we have now is we do not need to start from where they started, because the technology, the knowledge is already here. So we can actually start from where they are, because we know the technology they use, they're able to ship and sell the technology they have to be able to produce products they produce. So how do we go that? How do we take that leap of faith that you mentioned earlier, considering now that probably there's no drawing board? Where's the drawing board? What is on the drawing board?
I totally agree with you. We start with what we have. We start with what is here now. And mistakes are there, pitfalls are there, but how open are we in receiving feedback, receiving criticism? Because when I speak of that drawing board, it may not necessarily be a board where you put down everything you want to see, but basically that idea that you're trying to implement, then you come across an obstacle, yeah? How ready are we to adjust along the way? Because all that a drawing board gives you is direction, yeah? There's forgetting yourself along the way. There's forgetting your vision along the way, but the drawing board is there to remind you of where you're headed to. So how ready are you to adjust along the way?
Right. Thank you so much. Aminata, allow me to pick your brain on one other thing. We have a tendency whereby if you, as an African, have a shop that sells spare parts, if you do not have a certain spare part, you would call an Asian and not a fellow African who has a shop that sells spare parts. And then an Asian would not tell you, I do not have a spare part. I have it in a certain store far from here. Give me a couple of minutes, I go get it. Literally, they do not have, but they call fellow Asians, and hence they support each other. But we as Africans have a feeling like if I call Aminata now, and Aminata gets this gig, she would grow and be better than I am. How do you first think that this narrative is true? And if it's true, how can we change it?
Whether it's true or not true, I will not be the judge. But do you know where the problem starts? It starts with us. It starts with ourselves. We tend to reflect that fear that we have inside us onto other people. And that has ripple effect. And the only way to work on that is to work on our own fears. Because today, Austin, if you take the leap of faith by saying, I don't have time for this particular work, but I think Aminata can do it. Yeah. Then you genuinely call Aminata and ask her, you know, there's 1, 2, 3, I'm unable to do it, but do you think you can do it? Let's not lie to each other. We are human beings. I will go do that work, finish, give you feedback that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if there's shenanigans and elements of fear and words behind the back and all that, I look for ways to reach out to that client on my own and see how I can do it on my own. But if you genuinely open up and say, hey, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go to, like, genuinely. I don't think anyone is mad or stupid enough to go ahead and try sabotaging that particular business. Same goes to even the example that you gave us of spare parts. Yeah. The reason we do not support each other is because of that fear we have inside of us. That fear of the unknown, that fear of thinking that that person will go and take away your clients and all that. But before that clients move to another shop, there must have been something you've done to that particular client. So back again, fear, 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 fear. Let's work on ourselves. I always say there's nothing as spiritual in this world as entrepreneurship. It doesn't matter whether you're selling products or services, that journey is spiritual. It involves a lot of personal growth that if you skip that particular part, this is where we get to. These are the problems that we face afterwards. So as you ask, how can we tackle this? Let's invest in ourselves. Let's take time to understand ourselves, master emotional intelligence, sit with our emotions. We are human beings. We are not robots. So in as much as we are trying to be perfect out there, if we cannot work on it from the inside, we're not getting anywhere.
Before you jumped, Aminata, I was thinking about service industry. Okay, I was thinking about schools and hospitals and tourism, and I want to pick your brain. How do we make sure that, we take our students, families, to schools and hospitals and support tourism that is in Africa? That will be my last question to you this morning.
Sorry, come up again. How do we take our kids to?
So oftentimes we have people that take students outside Africa, thinking that we probably do not have the best of education in Africa. We have people take patients outside Africa, thinking that we do not have good hospitals within Africa. We go to Europe and Middle East and Asia for tourism, while we can do better, way better, a million times better, enjoying nature, beautiful beaches. I went to one of the European countries a couple of years back and walked on a stony beach. It was my first time to see a beach that does not have sand, but stones. You cannot even walk barefoot, but for them, it was their thing. Now, how do we support African businesses grow Africa, support Africa, grow Africa, by really promoting and embracing African schools, promoting and embracing African hospitals or services, promoting and embracing African attractions?
I think the better way to start in all this is to take a leap of faith. And with all said and done, I take this opportunity to also congratulate the government of the United Republic of Tanzania, because in terms of hospitals, in terms of tourism, they are trying. We may not be there yet, but we see efforts every day. And as a continent, the best way to first make this possible is through industry collaborations. How does the entire medicine industry collaborate with the tourism industry to come up with one thing that makes sense to the client? Because the only obstacle I'm seeing here is where the stakeholders of hospitals initiative and the stakeholders of tourism taking that as their own initiative, then at the end of the day, it's two things that serve completely two different purposes, and the end buyer is stranded. But if there's some sort of collaboration between the medicine industry and the tourism industry, let's say, there's a lot we can do. So yes, the best way to make this happen is through strategic collaborations.
Thank you, Aminata. And as I come towards the close of my interview session with you this morning, and thank you so much for your invaluable contribution, allow me to ask you what is happening in Arusha recently? What has been happening? What is happening? What is there to come? Tell us. Africa needs to know Arusha.
The most exciting news I have for Africa this morning is Arusha has been identified as the country's hub for medical tourism. The other day, the Minister of Health was here and she shared that news, which really brought hope for not just the people in Arusha, but the entire East Africa region. Because as you know, we host the East Africa Community Headquarters here, and we have a number of other international organizations. And it's crazy how people have been traveling all the way from Arusha to Nairobi to go to hospitals. And they were actually shocked to see the facilities that Mount Meru Hospital has. So guys, this is great news. It's another reason for you to travel to Arusha. We've got very good hospitals. We've got other fascinating things that will make you feel better before you even step into the hospitals. So I'm now sharing this news that Arusha is one of the few medical tourism hubs in Tanzania.
That is fantastic news, and thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope that, again, as with schools, hospitals, and tourism, we're also to enjoy very on and attract more Africans. My first country, as this is Wake Up Africa, more Africans to come from Medic going to Apollo India. We cannot compete, but again, there's a starting point. Aminata, what are your parting remarks?
Sorry, Austin, I missed you up on that.
Your parting remarks, what is that message you have for Africa on the third episode of Wake Up Africa? Buying local products, supporting local business, supporting African business. What is your take-home message?
Ladies and gentlemen, let us support our own. Let's support our own in all ways possible, in giving feedback, sharing reviews, and all that. And business owners, please, please, please don't let us down. Please don't let us down. We're taking a leap of faith and we want this thing to work. So please, please, please don't let us down. Put in that work. Please just put in that work. Oh, but
It's really appreciated, and always I love the contribution that comes from you. I mean, this is Wake Up Africa. We are only able to change the narratives if we are able to speak up. So thank you very much, and we will be with you next week, Saturday, Aminata. And the topic next week is very interesting. We're going to dissect onto the education system. Is our education system really preparing us for the current needs and the future need of African continents? Or are we still stuck up in the colonial education? Do we still need a degree to be able to get it? To discuss next week, up until next week, stay tuned. This is Africa.
Thank you, Austin. I'm excited to be there
will be
next week.
back.
And early next week, I'm about to give a talk to to young girls on the importance of going to college and all that. So you can imagine what I'm going to put up there. It's going to give me some extra experience on whatever I'll come and share on Saturday next week. Over to you, Austin, and have a lovely weekend.
Yes. So please let us know what is the inputs that the students will say. Does the university matter anymore? Thank you so much, Aminata. Have a great weekend. This is Wake Up Africa. We will be back. And welcome back. This is Wake Up Africa. Today we are looking on to supporting African businesses, buying local products, supporting local businesses. When you buy local, the resources remain internally. They remain in the country, banks able to give loans, do a lot of development work in our countries, in our continent. Why is it that we cannot do that? We do not have the necessary skills to produce good quality products and have products that can compete with foreign products, local standards, but again, we impose international pricing. We have compliance issues. A lot of informal businesses characterize businesses in Africa, but again, technical know how we ought to export your people to go and acquire certain skills and come and develop products and businesses in your country, overcrowding of markets with similar products, lack of innovation. Lack of innovation, but again, considering that the biggest market we have, the African continent itself, we are able to produce, for instance, Tanzanian rice and sell across the African market through African Continental Free Trade Area and be able to get that revenue of more than 1.3, close to 1.3 billion people that makes the population of Africa. Why then do we need to really think that the Tanzanian rice could be better sold in Europe if we have the market? I'm not saying that it should not, okay? Because they can also say, no, we're not selling you technology. What would happen? But look at integrating Africa, and we need to also think that we can support each other as a continent. I have Ayo from Nigeria that says the cost of travel in Africa are very high. Interconnectivity is crazy. Imagine to move from one African country, you go abroad only to come back to Africa. Hence, high cost of touring in Africa than in Europe. You're absolutely right, Ayo. You're absolutely right. There was one time that I was going to an African country. Literally, it is, I could go by road. It is that close. But the cheapest flight that I could get, of course, it's Africa. I had to fly to Emirates. I flew Emirates. So I had to fly to Dubai to come back to my neighboring country. You know, Tanzania, I flew to Dubai, to Kenya. Okay. So the costs are high, interconnectivity is crazy. I agree with you, Ayo, that it is cheaper to go on tourism outside Africa. He said yes, specifically Europe, than to tour in Africa. So, Ayo, what is your take? Africa, what is your take? I'm waiting for you, Alan Subi, to respond to this. What is your take? It's really ridiculous the way we do pricing in our countries. And we tend to wish and think, yes, we can bring Africa together, but again, we are stranded by issues of interconnectivity when it comes to tourism. Jean Remy, good morning and welcome to Wake Up Africa, all the way from Rwanda. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Austin?
Fine, thank you. How is Rwanda this fine, beautiful Saturday morning?
Thank you. We are doing extremely well, and we are entering in our short sunny season. Yeah.
Jeremy, I may not necessarily be able to spell the exact word, but I will explain it if I got it correct. You used to have, I do not know if you still have something called Umugimbwa or something, whereby on Saturdays you go and clean the streets. Do you still have that in Rwanda? And what is it called?
It's called Umuganda, and yes, we still have it on the last Saturday of
Or
the
the
month.
last Saturday. It's called
Yes.
Umuganda.
Yes.
What does that word mean?
Umuganda, in our language, it means giving a hand to each other. So when we are doing Umuganda, we are giving a hand to our neighbors, our community, and our country.
Very
That's
good.
the literal meaning of it. So
Okay.
what happens in Umuganda is it's like a community service where by everyone, I mean everyone, students, all public workers, private sector, everyone should go to the designated area in their community, either in the village or the cell, and they go to the selected place where they can do a cleanup, planting trees, helping out maybe someone who lost a home, and they help to build it up. Any social activity that can be done, yeah. Or we clean the roads.
Okay. So most likely the last
Yeah.
Saturday of January we would not be with you because you'll be going for that.
Not necessarily, because it depends on the nature of your work. For instance, the people in, let's say, for example, I work in hospitality industry. Most of the times, weekends also we work even on the Umuganda. So there is an exception, but yeah, it's not everyone that can be able to join Umuganda all the times. Because, for instance, the students who are in boarding school, they're exempted from it. Students in universities, they're exempted from it if they have other activities to do. But other than that, everyone should join that. Yeah. But I will be
Thank you,
able to
Remy.
join.
Remy, thank you so much. Remy, I'm coming to Rwanda next week. We will talk about that offline. But for now, on Wake Up Africa, we're looking on to supporting African businesses, buying local products, and supporting local businesses. What is your take on that? Why is it that oftentimes we are we have the thinking that foreign products are more superior than local products, and how can we change that narrative? How do we buy Africa support? I saw this in Uganda. Probably when Alan So becomes, they have a whole campaign running: Buy Uganda, Grow Uganda. Okay, so how do we buy Africa, support Africa? What is your take on that?
Thank you so much. I think the policy of buying local produce and made in Africa products, it's a two-way street deal, because if you buy something from Africa, you know that the money is staying within your community, within your village, and it will make it will make your way one way or another. It will come back to you, because if you buy, let's say you buy some clothes that were tailored and made by a local tailor in your country, those tailors, they are going to spend that money in your economy. They might come back to buy from your shop. They might buy from your sister. They might buy from where you work at your workplace, and that will keep the money in circulation of your house. So I mean, supporting the local community is the way forward for Africa, and also it's the economic cheapest option we have, because I know we tend to get these items from foreign countries, China and other developed countries, because they get here cheap, because they have cheap labor, they have everything that can make their price go low. But if you buy a local product, it means you are supporting your industries to improve on what they do. The more we buy from them, the more they get enough money to support their production, the more it gets cheaper. Imagine if you are buying, let's say, pens from a local uh, factory. If you continue buying them, you are going to provide enough capital for them to support bigger production, because they have the market. You are also going to provide uh, enough market to be able to lower the prices. But if we don't, that's why our items are always higher price, yet they are local, and we get to buy items from foreign countries, which are more cheaper, but in the long run, we are not supporting ourselves. We are supporting their countries, because the more we buy from them, the more they keep producing those items. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I've really liked it, Remy, the way you put it that, the money that you spend by buying your local product will certainly find a way back to you. I really like the way you said it. Now, one of the challenges that we have, Remy, and you will correct me if I'm wrong, is on pricing. We price our products ridiculously. We have the raw materials here. We have what it takes to produce the products here, but the pricing is crazy. How can we be able now to advise on the pricing aspect so that we're able to support African businesses?
My take on that, of course, I'm starting a business myself, and what I've realized is sometimes you can't say high prices are ridiculous, because sometimes they also are the only way you can stay afloat in the business. But the issue is when you're starting, of course, you have to be able at least to attract customers at first. Show them your product. If they like it, they will stay. You create some royalty in your business. What I can advise for local sellers and local industries in Africa and in my country as well is to start small. They start with low margin on their profit. They minimize their margin to be able to accommodate the new buyers, because most of the times, if we are going to choose something to buy, we base on the price first. So let's say if you are farming rice, let's say from Tanzania, I think you are well known for growing wonderful and tasty rice. So if I'm going to buy rice from Tanzania, it has to be cheaper than the rice that come from India, Pakistan, and others. But if it's not, I will still, because human behaviors it tend to be more of routine. So if I'm used to something, I don't want to change that. I must be given reasons why should I change. So the quality is there, I agree, but the price will be the attractive point to me. And then if the price is lower or even like on the same price as those items that we get from outside, why not should I not switch? And then that's where the government can come in if they see that the item can be bought and can be afforded. Now that's when they intervene and they can impose tariffs for the items that come from foreign countries. I think that's what they do in their country. I have been looking at the news in the US how they are going to put tariffs on all items coming from Asia, from India, from China. And they put like 30% tariffs. That is to stop import of those the items from those countries, because they know local producers can be able to support and sustain the market, the local market. If they know that they can't sustain it, they will not prevent the items to come, because at the end of the day, they are going to harm the economy and the livelihood of the people in the countries. So I think we can't always blame all our governments doesn't support local producers. That's why we keep buying outside. It's it's a collaboration between us. As the community, you have to take the first step to support our fellow brothers and sisters to be able to make them grow their businesses, and then the countries also will intervene in putting incentives, lowering taxes, and making easier to establish businesses, things like that. But it all starts with us, consumers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Remy. And I've learned that have you ever tested rice from Tanzania, Remy?
Yes, yes, I love it. And Rwandans, they love your rice. When you cook your rice, you can smell it like 10 meters away from your home. When you are getting home and you can smell it, and you know that the meals are going to be delicious. Yeah, we love it here.
Alan Sobi is online and she hears you. I'm not sure how much of rice they cultivate in Uganda, but we'll see. But when I come next week, I'll try to bring a kilo or two, my brother, for you.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you so much. Now, tell us, what is your message for Africa today? But before you give us your message for Africa, Remy, tell us what's happening in Rwanda.
Thank you. What I can say that happened in my country this past week, uh, we hosted I can diplomats luncheon by our president. There was also cabinet meeting, the first cabinet meeting in this year, and all in all, what is the take from all those two? It's about partnerships and also prioritizing private sector. The government have announced that they are going to sell like mostly like almost like 60% of their stakes in public public companies, and then they give them to private sector to improve their performance and efficiency, and also to generate more economic benefits to the country as well. And what also our president emphasized in the meeting in the luncheon, that uh, collaboration is the way forward for Africa and for all nations in the world. Because if you don't collaborate and give each other's opportunities to showcase our strengths, to showcase what we can do for each other, there is no way forward. That's what I can say that is going on in my country. Yeah.
60% of government tax fall to the private sector. Wow, this is mesmerizing. And I'm happy that the president said that he's doing this so that the private sector can be part and parcel to bring that innovation into the economy. This is brilliant. I really admire your president. I really must say this yet again. And your parting remark will be?
My parting remark will be, as the title of this show says, Wake Up Africa. We have to wake up. Uh, it's not like we are establishing something new. It has been there for decades, but not within us, but in other countries. Let's take, for instance, Europe. They have been doing free visa for every country in the European Union. Moving from one country to another, you take a bus and you go. You take a train and you go. When you are in those countries, why not us? Why should I pay a fee of maybe $60 to go to Kenya, or $80 to go to Chad, or $100 to go to Egypt? Why? Because we are on the same continent. We have joint infrastructures. We have laws together. We have, we have many things to do, and we know for a fact that we are not allowed to do that if you are going from our country to other countries. If you are flying from Egypt to US, you have to pay visa, if I'm not mistaken. If you are coming from South Africa, the same thing. Coming from Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, West Africa, any country. If you go to any Western country or Asian country, you have to pay a visa fee. But on them for them to come to our countries is free, because now we say we need them, but also they need us. So I think we must establish that in our countries, and also business-wise. Why are you going to look for market in the Europe? You pay this absurd amount of money to attend that trade show, but you can come in Rwanda and analyze the market yourself, see if your product can survive, and establish a cheaper way of doing business for you. And we also are supporting our fellow countries. Imagine, for instance, if we are going to buy, let's say, gift items to give to put in our boutique and gallery in hotels, most of hotels in Rwanda, because I'm giving an example in hotels because that's where I work, and most of the items in our stores, they are from outside, because in we have to give variety as well to the guests who are coming to Rwanda. Even though they are coming to Rwanda, they are coming to Africa. Most of them, they come first time and they are not going to visit any other country. They want to live with a souvenir item to their country. Imagine if in our stores there was items from Namibia, from Nigeria, from Tanzania. That will be representing the whole Africa. But it's not only my effort to go and source those items, but it must be also the effort for all our fellow countries, our fellow neighbors, to also say, I think there might be a marketplace for my items. People have items from Tanzania. Why not? If you sell arts and craft from Tanzania, why don't you establish a connection here in Rwanda and say, okay, I'll be giving you this and this. I saw that it might make a profit for me, and we start from there. And that happens, that will apply to all the items, the service industry. If you have a service, come provide it and try it out and see if it can work. It just needs to step up. That's what we need. Yeah.
Let me know, Remy, when should I start sending Tanzanian rice to Rwanda? And I will be gladly doing that.
Let's start that when you come back here in next week.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We will discuss. So thank you very much, Remy. It's always a great honor and pleasure to have you on Wake Up Africa every Saturday morning. Thank you very much. And I wish you well. I will be seeing you, God willing. We say inshallah on Wednesday.
All right. Inshallah. Thank you so much.
But before you go, next week, Remy, on Wake Up Africa, we will be looking onto, does university degree matter? Does our education really prepare us for the markets today and tomorrow? Do we still need to go to university to acquire a degree and then be in the streets jobless? What do we need to do so that the education system in Africa can really empower us and prepare us for the jobs now and the jobs that are to come in the future? So once again, thank you very much. And in a couple of seconds, we shall join Alan Subi all the way from Uganda for her take, what it is that it takes to support African business, buying local products, supporting local products. Up until next week, see you and talk to you on Wake Up Africa. Thank you, Remy.
Thank you so much, Austin. Bye.
This is Wake Up Africa, and thank you, my dear viewers, for joining. In about 5 seconds, we shall be joined by Alan Subi, all the way from Uganda, and she will share what her thoughts are towards supporting African business. We will be back. Rise and shine, Africa. It's 10 minutes before 9 o'clock, 10 minutes of Wake Up Africa. I still have my very own Alan, all the way from Uganda, to tell us her take this beautiful Saturday morning. Alan, good morning.
Good morning, Austin.
How are you? How is Uganda this fine Saturday morning?
I'm great. Uganda is great. The weather is beautiful this morning. The sun is already out. And I'm glad that you saved me for last.
I'm grateful. I hope one of these days I'll be able to take Wake Up Africa program from somewhere where I can actually have the sun heat. I'm not sure. It's pretty hot. It could really get hot in Tanzania. But Alan, interest of time, we're looking today on the 3rd episode. And once again, thank you for constantly setting and giving us time to share your contribution onto the Wake Up Africa. We're looking onto supporting African business today, buying local products, supporting local products. I visited Uganda many times last year, and I remember reading on your walls, I think you're running a campaign of buying Uganda, supporting Uganda, or was it buying Uganda, grow Uganda?
Buy Uganda. It's called Bubu. Buy Uganda, build Uganda.
Buy Uganda, build Uganda. So it's similar to what we're discussing today. What does that initiative take? Buy Uganda, build Uganda. Buy Africa, build Africa.
Austin, I missed the the previous speaker. I didn't get the gentleman's name, but he was talking about this initiative starting with us. And while I agree with him to a certain extent, but to a larger extent, I really want to give it up to our Ugandan government because this initiative started with them. You know, Ugandans have always been invested in the economy. They were starting up their small factories, small businesses, but it was up to the government to put out a campaign that was supposed to build Ugandan businesses and encourage Ugandan consumers to consume, to have trust and confidence in the products that are produced here, because there are people that have taken time and have put resources together to add value to these products. So that campaign, Buy Uganda, Build Uganda, was an initiative of the Ugandan government, and it's still ongoing. What it did is it made us recognize Ugandan products. Right now, because of that campaign, when I enter a supermarket, I'm looking at product like, is this made here or is it made in China? You know, I have that, I compare, because that's stuck. It's now top of mind. You'll get to a furniture shop, and when you see a sign of Bubu, you know that they have furniture from Malaysia, from wherever, but they also have some from Uganda. So when I get in there, I'm looking to see what's from Uganda first. Yeah, so I think that African governments can take lead in building their country businesses by running such initiatives.
How do, and this is fantastic, really, again, kudos to the Ugandan government. And I think it needs to escalate from Uganda and just spread all over Africa. But how do you then look onto, as you rightly said, you look if the product is from Uganda or from elsewhere, how do we then look onto the aspects of quality? You know, earlier on, I mean, let us spoke about quality, consistency, services. How do we ensure that our products, African products, remain competitive in the markets?
So this is it, Austin. Once you've made up your mind to support local products, because there's a variety of them on the aisle anyway, then you start gauging on price, gauging on quality. I know I also look at packaging. There's some Ugandan products that have really been packaged so well. So I'm always amazed when I see those. I know that I have crossed out, and let me just bring it down to, let's say, beauty products. I know that there are investors in Uganda that have gone above and beyond on the beauty products front. So once I rule out anything that's coming out of Uganda and I have to focus on the Ugandan products, I know that I have a variety to pick from. So then we can discuss price, we can discuss packaging, we can discuss quality at that level. But I also appreciate the fact that locally we have put in the work in ensuring that, you know, we have organic products. You know, when it comes to quality, we are getting there. We are getting there. When we talk about agricultural products, when we talk about coffee, our own, Ugandans are putting in the work. When you compare coffee coming from out of Uganda and what we produce here, you'll see that we are putting in the work. So it can only start with a mindset change for us to start appreciating products made locally first, and you know, then we can talk about other areas next.
Excellent. Alan, earlier on, we had a person called Ayo. I'm afraid to say a lady or a gent, Ayo, could be a unisex name, from Nigeria, who said, we were talking about tourism and how, you know, when I come to Uganda, you know, the way I just love to explore Uganda. It says the cost for tourism are very high in Africa compared to going for tourism outside Africa. For instance, he gave an example of interconnectivity. He says, in order to go to one African country, sometimes you've got to go to abroad for a connection back to Africa. So the cost for tourism are higher than cost of tourism than traveling to Europe. So, for instance, I gave an example myself. I experienced that I was going to Kenya. It was cheaper for me to fly Emirates than to fly my flight, Air Tanzania or Kenya Airways. So I had to take Emirates all the way to Dubai, 5 hours, and fly back another couple of hours, where I could just take one hour flight to Kenya using the vessels, but the costs are very high. What is your take on this? What is your call on this? How can
Yeah,
we reduce, cut down the prices?
I think it's a challenge, not just the flights, but even accommodation. I know that for local travelers, the cost of sightseeing, some sites that are here in Uganda, they are very expensive, and then you wonder if the governments are really promoting local tourism, or they're only promoting it to to the tourists, to the external tourists. I know that's a challenge, but how can we address it? Number one, we're looking at the causes. Are our local flights getting as much traction? Because if they are getting the numbers, then the cost of production is met, and then that means that the airline can afford to reduce the costs. But if they're not meeting their targets when it comes to numbers, then what do we expect? So in the short run, we the locals have to pay the price, and also then it impacts on the airline prices. Again, that's something that the government should intervene on. And how can they do that? They can subsidize on certain things like taxes. I know that and it hurts. I think the previous speaker touched on it. It hurts how foreign businesses get tax holidays and subsidies, you know, by policymakers, and yet local businesses bleed. They bleed through the nose to sustain their businesses year in, year out. The revenue authorities are tough on local businesses, and yet they offer tax holidays as an incentive to invest. Uh, Imagine if they did those incentives for local businesses, how much more would we benefit from those? So, when our local businesses receive these tax holidays and whatnot, then cost of production is reduced, then the costs can reduce, and then we can invest more on ensuring quality, you know. So I think it's a cycle, but again, it starts with the government, it starts with the policymakers.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. Yet again, interest of time. And as always, I truly appreciate your contribution. What is happening in Uganda?
Uganda, this week has been graduation week. We've had so many people in the industry and young people graduating with masters, with bachelors, with PhDs. So yeah, it's been graduation week. We felt it with on the road. There's been a lot of jam, but generally it's been a good week. People are graduating from school.
What a great way to start a year with a graduation cake. Next week, we are going to look really onto the education, Alan, and you are going to tell us, do you think, with all this jubilation, with all these graduations, um, do they really matter? Does that graduation, that certificate, degree, diploma that you acquire, does it really address the needs of the industry? And that is what we are going to look on to next week. But before I let you proceed with great heart, what is your parting remark to Africa?
Yeah, thank you, Austin. I'm looking forward to discussing the education system with you next week, because I love how these topics have been lined up, because the education system will also feed into what we're discussing today, because and still as part of my parting shots, when we say buy Uganda, build Uganda, is it that every Ugandan has something they can sell? So is our education system preparing us for that? Or is it preparing us to be job seekers? You know? So it's a good conversation to have. I'll just leave it as a question for now. Think about, when the government runs such an initiative to promote local businesses, are you contributing in terms of putting out product to sell, or are you just going to be a consumer of that product? You as an educated Ugandan, you as an educated African. Yeah. Thank you so much, Austin, for having me.
So thank you very much, Alan, and I look so much forward to talking with you next week. I've loved the concept of Bubu, and it really needs to go across the entire African continent because Wake Up Africa is about that. We want to buy and support growth of businesses in Africa. So up until next week, Alan Subi, be well, be safe, and see you next week. Thank you very much for your time and contribution.
Welcome. Nice weekend, Austin.
I wish you the same. Thank you very much. And as we come to the end of Wake Up Africa third episode, where we were looking on to supporting African businesses, buy local products, support local businesses, similarly to what Uganda has, buy Uganda, build Uganda. It really begins with you. I would really like to thank Aminata, Remy, and Alan Subi for your contribution. It's been a fantastic time. Sorry that Elliot could not join us today. He's traveling outside Africa. I'm sure next week he will tell us how the journey has been. He's gone to Europe. Pat could not join us today. He had, unfortunately, an incident losing a friend. She lost a friend yesterday. Our condolences as Africa. We stand with you through this difficult, trying time. Sorry for the loss of your friend and colleague. But this is Wake Up Africa. I would also like to thank Essa and Noreen for making it yet again a great possible to bring Africa together onto the program. I'm your host, Austin Makani. Until next week, does your degree, does your education support you? Does it build you? Does it prepare you for the market today and tomorrow? Let's meet next week on Wake Up Africa. Don't forget to subscribe to Wake Up channel on YouTube. Up until next week, thank you so much. Bye-bye.